Holly, good day, sir. It's always a good day when I get to talk with you.
Ah, top of the morning to you.
Oh, you Irish bastard. But I was going to say you're looking sharp, and I don't want to be like too self-effusive, but nice shirt you got there. Where'd you get that from?
Very, very nice. Look at this beautiful Mitch Wonders podcast raglan shirt that I love the shirt. If you're an old school wearer of shirts, these are the ones you played softball in when you were a kid. They're just
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's true.
and I'll use an overused adjective now. They're buttery soft.
I don't I don't know if that's overused because I just
It's
felt kind of funny when you said
It's
that.
it's overused. Everything's buttery soft, especially when they describe underwear that you
Oh,
can, on the internet. Oh, you love these underwear. They're buttery soft. Well, let me tell you, after I wear them for an hour, they're very buttery
oh,
soft.
Jesus. Just don't. It's we've already spent too much time for me to stop and edit that out. So just let me apologize for people because where I was going with was the fact that I want to remind people that the merch store is open. And if you go, I can tell you how to get there. Go to mitchwonders.com. Up in the upper left, you'll see the shop button, and that'll take you over to the page that lets you enter the merch store in one button, or buy the Mitch Wonders book with another button. But I think the important thing is if you page down to page 2 of 2, it shows you like everything that's in the merch store for sale. And one thing I brought up that I want to bring this up kind of important to me anyway, and hopefully to other people, that one of the items on there is a Mitch Wonders shirt designed specifically for this purpose. And it's a good design, I think. And every item that is sold, every one of those shirts that sells, all the proceeds go to the National Veterans Foundation. So I think it's a great group. They do it's veteran run, veteran connected. Like the people, if you're gonna say they also do a helpline on there. So if you're having issues, PTSD, whatever you want to talk, just dealing with life in general, there's a hotline you can call and connect with another veteran. That's just one of the things they do. So
That's very
appreciate your
cool.
support if you guys want to. Otherwise, hop in, buy the book like Holly's done. Hey, and maybe buy a shirt. And I'm going to do some heads up, by the way. There's going to be a new fall and winter merch drop coming pretty quick.
That's very cool. That's very, I never have enough fall attire.
Yeah, yeah. There's of course the stocking caps on there because that was a high demand item, but there will be more. There's some cool
Very,
jackets and whatnot. But I want to talk today because I was listening to, and I'll give these guys credit, but because it brings up, and I'm going to stop rambling, I promise. But because today we're going to talk about which generation did we grow up faster? Because it's always, because each generation, particularly I think baby boomers like to think that they grew up faster than millennials. And we'll talk about that. But
hmm
the idea came from when I was listening to one of my new favorite podcasts called Smartless, which is it's Justin Bateman, the guy who was he was on Will and Grace and Will Arnett. Apparently, they're three friends in life, and it's a funny show. I'll give those guys credit; they are funny, but I don't get it, Holly. Why? I think celebrity podcasts are the new celebrity alcohol. Because I see, you remember back in the day, every celebrity had a bottle of tequila.
Yeah, but you know what? I think it's easy money. And
Exactly,
and
but
it's
why do
still
they need that?
happening. It's still happening today. It's so weird. That's why the people from that make It's Always Sunny, they must really be rich because they
Yeah.
did a
Oh,
podcast and they even got to the point where they were getting people to pay. They were doing pay-per-view events on their podcast, and then they just once McElhenney started that Welcome to Wrexham show, it just
well, he
ended.
bought the damn team
Well,
first.
yeah, he and Ryan Reynolds bought the team. They're kind of in now, so they have a good
But
chunk of the
also, I mean,
town.
because you bring it up because we've talked about it before, like and we'll get back on track, but we've wondered like why people like Kevin Hart have to do credit card commercials. Smartless, by the way, it's they've got the celebrity name. Like I say, they're genuinely funny. They know a lot of people, so their guests are very impressive, like
hmm
presidents and Academy Award-winning actors. But they also have a cell service. What? A
Well,
smart-
another reason why I think that entertainers are doing more ad work is, I mean, let's face it, cinema's circling the drain. So,
What is?
there's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, maybe.
when you think about, remember how these were the best movies of the year. Now I go on to the new releases and I'm like, what? What's this? Or what's that?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm even okay with, if it's something I really want to watch, ponying up $20 to see it because I don't have to pony
Not
up
me.
$50 for the popcorn.
I
but
will
there's nothing
not.
even there,
I will
that
not. I will wait till it drops to 5.99, and hopefully I've got Amazon dollars to back that up too. But
you can watch Amazon forever. You
but
can
they
watch
also
it.
got but Smartless had Amy Poehler. I mean, you're familiar with Amy Poehler from
Yes.
Saturday Night Live. She's also got a podcast, by the way.
Oh,
But and I don't. But anyway, but and so does what's the oh God, I'll never remember her name. Her kind of her partner on SNL.
yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, her. She's got one too. They've all got them. But she stated
Tina
that
Fey.
there you go. Love Tina Fey, and especially
Yes.
in the movie
Yeah, that one.
the Walter Mitty that redone by Ben Stiller. Great movie. But
Yeah.
she stated, Amy Poehler said that Gen X was forced to grow up faster, and right away the whole episode just I was at the gym working out, and it was all white noise. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean Gen X was forced to grow up faster? And I'm going to ask you because you and I both know we're at the end of what's classified as the baby boom, and we kind of had
Hmm.
tendencies where we kind of lean toward Gen X. But for sake of argument, we're going to argue like we're the baby boomers.
Yeah, I mean it's odd because you're talking about the whole generation of baby boomers was what we talking about 18 years. And so depending on which end of the baby boomer era you were born in, you had a completely different experience because we had um, a lot of breakthroughs that were happening, and there was a lot of movement. There was a, that was post the baby boomers were post World War II. There was a
They
lot of
were.
economic growth. Your middle class became much larger than what it was before. People
True.
were able to purchase homes at a much faster clip than what they were before.
And I
But
think more importantly, at younger ages, because
yeah, yeah,
a lot of them, but also though, I mean, because the baby boomers, I think, had different responsibilities. Everybody does, but I think the responsibilities were earlier because we started working earlier. For me, I had to lie to get my first job and say I was 16, but prior to that, I'd been working on farms for probably 8 years.
yeah. I'm yeah. I mean, if we always you could work out the work out the tasseling. If you were in the
Yeah,
Midwest, if you were in the
yeah. If you're
Midwest,
tall,
you
if you're
always
tall enough, yeah.
$1.19 an hour
Oh, I was
was
damn near $3 when I started, but damn, damn near $3, and I'm proud of that. But
we're
like you
kind
say though,
folks,
when
just if you haven't noticed, we're a little bit old. But
we had jobs in our early teens, and it wasn't uncommon to move out and start families like exactly like I did in their 20s.
I
So I
got
was married with
suckered.
two kids by the time I was 26.
I got suckered into getting my first job by my father. It was a life lesson that uh good old boy, may he rest in peace, but he put one over on me. He bent me over royally by giving me freedom. He bought me a car. And then he goes, now you got to get a job. And then he outlined what I had to pay for it. And I said, I don't want the
Yeah.
car, Dad. And he goes, I'm sorry, son, you can't go backwards in being an adult.
Well, I mean that's again though that's an
Yeah.
example of the societal expectations because I mean and then it grew to be cultural I think for baby boomers because believe it or not we're deep in the discussion now, but
But we had
like
more too.
well
But we had more
wait
monetarily
well
than some.
I don't know I would argue that.
What we thought were poor. Look, I know that we all thought we were poor because we came from BFE, this little rat hole town where nobody had anything except for the doctors' families. And so, I mean, and even with your family, you had a large family. And you had a large. I mean, I thought, like you and I talked about I thought when I was a kid, only doctors' families even went on vacation. I didn't even know what a vacation was until I was
Yeah,
probably,
ha ha ha. You think 11, a family of 11 is large? Ha ha. Ha.
well, I
I used to,
mean,
people to ask me, I would have to add Catholic at the end. So
the
like Tim, how many kids do you have in your family? Nine, Catholic. Just so they know.
well, it's because yeah, mom and dad practiced the rhythm and bingo method for birth control. If you didn't have the rhythm right, bingo, there's
But
Tim.
I mean, post World War II, and like you say, we were at the far end of this post World War
The
II stuff.
very end of it.
There was an economic boom. So I think, that I think there was less of that economic boom, but we still maintained the traditional values, which kind of pushes you, I guess you could think, into growing up faster.
But
But
yeah,
but now,
well, I think what made me grow up faster, a lot of things, I think it's environment. I think it's environment, whether it's your family upbringing, the environment you're in. One of the things that I think our generation grew up faster in a different way than Gen X is Vietnam. Vietnam was the first televised war that ever. And once you saw some of the things, and it was pretty unfiltered. And my family kept me shielded from Vietnam the whole time that it happened. The only time that I knew
primarily,
about Vietnam,
yeah.
I knew about Vietnam when my brother-in-law had to be in uh, the draft, the lottery. So I knew about them because everybody was white knuckling until his number didn't get called. But I was very shielded from Vietnam until I saw my first taste of it on TV, and you can't unwatch that. And when you see some of those images, you have lost innocence. And I think that that's what happened. And you grow up. A part of your youth is gone when you
Do you think it's
see,
all, do you
you
think
know,
that loss of innocence was also fostered by less protective parenting? Like we could get up on Saturday morning, have a bowl of cereal, walk out the back door. My parents wouldn't see me until dinner time or maybe a little bit after. And they wouldn't care.
See, it could be, it very well could be, but but back in the day, were we ever afraid of dying? And not saying that the kids today are afraid of dying, but did we ever have situations? I'm sure that we could have gotten ourselves into some stupid situations, but I
I'm
mean,
sure we did.
when we went out, we there was a pretty good shot they knew we were coming back home. You were either playing in the creek, you were playing on the hill. You
Yeah,
know, you weren't, we didn't, there was
climbing a
no
tree.
gun violence, there was no knife violence, there were bullies, a couple of bullies in our town, but you know,
Sure were.
but other than that, we lived a friggin' perfect life. And I remember us
Well,
having a detainment camp in our park where they had people from Chicago that young kids that they detained there. It was like it was a light uh, security boys camp,
oh yeah, I
and
do remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they thought that it was they never wanted to go back when they
Well,
went.
we still had like strife, like racial strife was strong in our town.
It was,
Uh,
but yet it wasn't with that, you know, and except for the racial strife, you know, and we're not going to get into that. The one time that I noticed it more was on Sunday mornings because that's when they let the boys camp come into town and go to the show.
Well, I think growing up with like we're talking about with less support or like you're indicating with more or less hardship doesn't always mean like because there's an emotional maturity as opposed to an age maturity, and it's sometimes just different coping mechanisms.
No, because you know what, when you're not structured, you're left to make your own decisions. That is a great liberty that I enjoyed when I was a youth. But I can tell you this, a great many of my decisions were wrong. And I had either more hands-on parenting or possibly the technology that we had even with Gen Xers didn't even have to go up until today. Would our lives have been different than what they are now? I say yes. Would they be better? I don't know. I look
Well,
at toward the end of my career, I hated it. I hated the fact that you know, I sat there and about my mom and my dad and how friggin' lucky they were that they worked 8 friggin' hours. And if you wanted me to stay a minute over, you were paying me time and a half. And when I worked for a company and I was a manager of people and resources, I got paid X amount of money. They paid me well and made me feel like I was important and worked my ass like a rented donkey. And, you know, I worked 60, 70 hours a week and that takes a toll on you. And that's growing up different. And that's what I think that the Gen Xers, you know, maybe they grew up harder. Maybe their growing up was harder. If they think faster or harder, I don't know, you know, maybe they had to grow up harder. There's much more
well, I mean,
competition.
you're gonna see that everything's relative, but like I think what you're speaking of is a definite compression of our adolescence. Like today, I think. if you want to jump to Gen Z and millennials, they kind of delay like our what we like hustled for our early adulthood milestones like marriage, kids, careers. They kind of
Mm.
delay it because they want to, they enjoy life more,
Yeah, they
and
can't
enjoy the
afford it.
experiences.
They can't afford it,
Pardon?
Tim. I mean,
Can't afford what?
they can't afford the family and the house and the stuff like that. These new ones can't. They
Sure, they
can't.
could.
I
It's
mean,
just choices.
it's well, I guess. I mean, down here we just recently, I mean, we happen to live near a home that was purchased by one of those home buying firms, and they haven't sold it, and so they rent it. And we just had another family move out well before their lease was up because $2,100 is a lot to pay for rent, and it shocks me. I mean,
Well,
even if you make
don't
a lot
rent
of
it
money a month.
if you can't afford it. Why are you renting it?
Well, no, what it's happened is people are forced to spend a larger percentage of their work income now uh, on housing than ever before. And
Is that
it's like,
opinion or do you have facts on
no,
that?
it's facts, and I'm not going to give them to you, but it's easy enough to find out. I'd have to say it's 5 times what it was before. I know for a fact. Okay, so I mean, I know what we bought our house for, and I know what we've been offered to sell it for in a very short period of time. So I know what that translates
Wait
out
a
to
minute,
in
very short period of time. You're talking 10, 20 years, right?
10 years.
That's
10
not a short
years.
period of time. That's a
But it's
long
gone
period of
up
time.
fourfold.
That's a long period of time, though. But
For
it's a lot of life.
fourfold? For
10
fourfold?
years? That's a
In a
fucking
blue collar
decade.
neighborhood? I don't know, maybe. But we're in a blue collar neighborhood. We're not living in Windermere, which is, for those of you that don't know, is a very expensive neighborhood in Orlando. Uh, it's where your Tiger
It
Woods and
sounds like an expensive neighborhood.
it is.
Come
Tiger
to
Woods
winter.
lives there. Mark Dawson from
Oh,
the
really?
Grassroots.
Well, now you're
Uh,
talking. But hey, what would you think of like, people growing up faster, but because we also aged physically and mentally different because of different diets,
that's
healthcare. Like
true.
we didn't know as much as we did about healthcare at all and expectations. So I think, that it probably by like visual appearance, you look like you grew up faster, but it's no. It's but when you come down to it, there's no because we kept talking like whether or not there's scientific proof or not, but there's no scientific evidence that one generation grew up faster. But there
Well,
are ages
I
of milestones, like they because when they do try to research that, and I don't know if it's limited or not, they talk about when did somebody leave home, when did they finish school, when did they get a first-time job, when did they get married, when did they have kids.
yeah, I mean that's also that's also you one would have to consider that the attitude for having all that's the same.
Well, I mean, but if you
And
want
then
to discuss
you'd
it
already
as a
mentioned the attitude for having a family has changed.
right, exactly. That's why the trend has, been happening later in over time. So even, from each generation on up. So
Hmm.
boomers reached the milestones on Earth earlier than millennials. So from that standpoint, it looks like we grew up faster. But now they also go into when you achieve economic independence, like you're talking about.
Hmm.
Studies show that boomers often achieved independence in their early 20s.
In your 40s, if you're lucky.
Well, today it's like young adults rely on family longer because of, like you say, the housing debt, stagnant wages. So they may not achieve that economic independence. But again, that's just like a general benchmark that researchers look at.
Well, I think, and part of that is I think our country has set us up for failure on that. And I blame politicians from both sides for not getting together with industry and say, you know what, we should try to talk our kids into not all going to college, but let's start building some trade schools to work heavy
Oh
machinery,
yeah,
know how to
wow.
make
Don't get
roads,
me
know how to
started
do
on
this and
trade
that.
schools.
I'm telling you,
I've always said, you learn how to run CAD equipment, you're set for life.
you're set, no
But
doubt. Look at Stuart Penoyer's dad. He had a friggin' D8 cat, and he had a job his entire life. I don't
but
know that he
he had
worked
a
for
blasting
anybody.
company too, though. I don't know if I
Yeah.
just want
Well,
to have
yeah.
a
I mean,
blasting.
he blasted and graded. I mean, people made their opportunities back then. I think it was easier to make opportunities too back then.
See? That's what I think that they, and then because again, like, now you just walked right into another category is like the social expectations and the way the culture shifts. So the now it's okay, like I think it's okay, it's accepted to delay maturity kind of. But boomers were expected to grow up fast because of what they see them as in society. So millennials and Gen
Well,
Z kind of face, they kind of, I don't know if they're facing this culture of exploration, but developing their identity, longer adolescence, and there was a psychologist called even some dude named Jeffrey Arnett called it emerging adulthood. I don't know what do you want to call? I mean, that used to be adolescence, I thought.
and why did we want to leave home so early when we were younger? I mean,
Oh,
I
I know
don't
why
think I
I
don't even
did. I just
know if
told you, 9 kids.
yeah, well, I know that's part of it, but
I was going hungry.
I think it was almost a mutual thing. I think our
What do you mean?
parents wanted us out just as bad as we wanted to go.
Well, I think it
And
was an
it's not that way
expectation.
anymore. It's
Like when
not
you
that
turn
way.
eight, I think back in the day, it was like when you turn 18, they kind of look at you like, you're still here? Like, what?
I
I'm
mean,
cooking for you too?
I roomed with my dad for a period of time for at a much older age than I had planned on, but I was in between not jobs. I was in between just houses. Didn't know where I was wanting to go or what I was wanting to do really, and I hung out with him and it was a very short period because I was like, no, man, I can't do this. So I got to get back out
Yeah,
and
they did do a scientific research and they, I don't know how they got them, but that they measured the size of brains
mm.
over ages. So like that was the same across all generations. So we got that going for us. But if you want to talk about who grew up faster, like by society milestones, baby boomers. By
Do you
emotional,
not think some of the science we do is junk as shit? We
well,
measured brains over a period of 40
maybe,
years, and they're the
maybe.
same size when evolution
Well,
takes millions of years. It's
you
like,
don't know until you do it. But by emotional maturity, there's no generation. So
but
if
you
we
know
really
why I
don't
think that
know.
emotional maturity has changed simply because of and I'm a firm believer of this, it's sensory overload. I believe that today's youth, and it started with Gen X. Actually, it started with us, but we were already young adults. So when we started getting the high sensory stuff, when technology started taking off, we were young adults. So we were like playing Nintendo and laughing our ass off and going to arcades and having a great time and playing the
Yeah,
8-bit, then the 16-bit games, whatever.
I'll buy that.
Now, technology is such a crazy useful tool. There are kids that are teaching themselves careers before they ever leave the house. But it's also a bad thing because with intelligence becomes lack of innocence. And and I'm not saying that it's right, but there's something to be said about ignorance by innocence that actually is probably a good thing for people for a while, depending on what the ignorance is. But there are certain things like you don't know about Santa Claus until you're told there's no Santa Claus, whatever. And I think we grew up in an age where we were ignorant by innocence because our parents may not have wanted to spend any time with us, but they did try to shield us to a point from the crappy stuff of the world as the best they could.
I
And
don't know.
there's no hiding the ugly now. There's no hiding it. It's given a soapbox and a megaphone now. And you know, and people have so much to choose from in the way of intelligence. So many opinions and alternatives and
Well,
whatever. And
that's a good point about the expectations for the intelligence of a 20-year-old today. Say, for example, they're expected to have a degree, maybe a stock portfolio, maybe a couple side hustles, and also, by the way, keep an eye on your mental health. But when we were 20, it's like get out and find the job. When you get that job, get a house, and then have a kid. There you go.
yeah, when we had mental problems when we were younger, it's you need to go to the bar, you need to drink that problem away. You need to do
And
the
talk where
Irish thing
everybody
and
knows.
stuff it down
Keep
deep.
stuffing it down, stuffing it down.
We shan't
Well,
talk about this. This is a good talk, son. We're never having this one again.
Well, it keeps changing though, because now, every generation, it's like growing up means different. Like, and now it might mean, like I say, leaning more toward, and like you say, leaning more toward understanding your mental health, navigating this gig economy, whatever that's called, and learning to exist in a digital world. So today's more, it seems like internal and complex.
And I think we're kind of lucky that we're born at the late part of boomer era because we have been exposed to so much technology at a young enough age that it's not foreign to us. So we adapt more easily to technology. And plus Apple, I just give them a plug. It's that's made it easy to pick up any one of their devices and be an expert at it. So, I mean, for us,
Really?
it's, for my sister, like my sister, is a few couple years older than me, and she's technology don't want it. She's like, and I'm
Well,
not gonna
many
say,
are. Many are.
she's like, nah. She goes, I'm never buying anything over a telephone. I'm never paying a bill over a telephone. She still writes checks, and we were laughing the other day that we still have the same box of 150 checks that our bank forced us to take from them for free because they had bought the other bank that we were at and they let us use their bank, Washington Mutual, for like a couple of years. And finally they said, look, we've owned this bank for 3 years. You have to use checks with our name on it. And I'm like, but I don't write checks. They're like, here's a box of 150. I have approximately 125 of those. And the account is over 12 years old. Oh no, God, it's longer. It's older than that. It's older than that. It's close to 20 years old.
Well, I think if it's, and I've gotten rid of some of my technology because somehow I accidentally became very tech heavy in this house. I'm looking around now. I still see some examples, but I also see my old stereo right over there, so that's cool. But I think, because the comparisons between generations, I think that we see, like as we're talking, it seems like they simplify it's very like we're talking about the criteria, but it also kind of flattens out. So it's just like, a lot depends on, not every Gen Zer is delayed, for lack of a better phrase. A lot depends on, unfortunately, like race, class,
And that's
location where you
always, it's
are,
unfortunately, that's always going to be that
opportunity.
way, Tim. I think
But
we're
it's
all,
always, but the point is, the facts are just like I think we all agree. The facts are a foundation, but how we interpret them is going to be still ongoing. So it's really just everything we talked about today is more conversation than any kind of conclusion.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that there is a right or wrong answer. This journey that we navigate through called life, it's like, it's weird. And
That's one of the reasons I wore this hat, by the way, so I could do this look. Yes, yes, sir. It sure.
the reason why I comb my beard is so I could get all the bottle caps and cigarette butts out of it and not look homeless.
I
So
love this hat, by the way.
it is a very nice hat. Although,
The lady, the
it's
lady
okay.
at the checkout counter at Delta was taken off to Chicago last fall, and I had this on. She's like, "That's a spiffy hat. Like, you look pretty good." She's like, "That there is a spiffy hat," and I said, "Thank you kindly, ma'am."
Yeah, yeah. I was when you talk about a look, I remember when I was traveling through an airport and I was all bundled up because it was cold and it was right after 9/11 and I had bought this uh, Garmin GPS, and they were going through every bag. And I remember just being pissed off having to stand there at the airport, and I'm going through the checking thing, and the guy's like unzipping my Garmin and like shaking it and whatever, and knocking it around on the table. And I told him, I said, I go, you scratched the screen on that bitch. I said, you're gonna need that soldier behind you because I'm gonna take you out right here. And so that's another thing that's changed um, that I for the worst, and I'm sorry for the people of today and the future is travel sucks. I'm so glad that I don't travel anymore by
What do you mean it
air.
sucks? I think
It
it's
sucks by air. Traveling by air is the biggest kick in the sack you could ever have anymore. Remember to
I've
show up
taken
at least two
probably
hours early.
honestly over the last 10 years, I've probably flown 300 times, and it hasn't changed a bit over 10 years.
Every time I fly, it's just never. I mean, for the one time that for every one time it goes smoothly, I'll have one near air disaster. My wife and I have been in near air disasters together. I've been in a near air disaster on my own twice on the same trip. On the takeoff, they blew an engine. I was on a puddle jumper. They blew an engine on takeoff, and on landing, the gear wouldn't come down, and they had to pull the friggin' floor up and hand crank the gear down on this puddle
Fucking
jumper.
run, go for it. Just belly womp that son bitch. We don't care.
That was what I told
The
my.
only concern, because as you're bringing it up, my only concern over those 10 years I tell you about was the issue I had with at Charles de Gaulle Airport, where they're like, I don't know what the word for laptop is. I had one in my bag, and they're like, "Is it but it's wall?" I'm like, "The fuck are you talking about?" They're, "Is it got wall? Is it this?" Yeah." I'm like, I was like, "I'm late. I gotta go. So take the bag." That's the only thing. And then, but when you get out of Charles de Gaulle, also, it's like they don't give a frog's fat ass about your language. It's like French gate number what? What? Je suis what? Anyway,
That's
we're
the
getting off
weirdest thing.
course.
That's like
We're
it
get,
would for a life experience. If you're talking about the French thing, you should come down to Miami and just walk in Miami and understand that it's not the United States.
oh yeah, yeah.
Miami is as Cuba as you could possibly be and
I
still be
agree.
connected to the United States. The first language is Spanish, and I learned that when I walked into a public, and I'm just like, I know like
Yeah,
poquito
I know enough to get
and
by. Same with
yeah,
French.
just
But
La
anyway, but we
Playa.
digress. We're going way off track here. So, but thank you for discussing this today, Holly. I think it was just like we say, it's just that's all it was, a discussion. No definitive. Any one generation grew up faster than the other. It's and there's no I don't want to say how to say it, but no stank on the way we think like it's kind of
I
sensitive the way millennials and people are growing up now. Hey, you again, you, do whatever you will, and we'll do us, and may the generations coexist together.
Yeah, and they don't. We still, I used to get upset about people going, "Okay, boomer," and then I'm like, you know what, whatever, whatever. Because if that's what makes you happy, yeah, that's when I grew up, and it's like, I grew up in the era for me, and I think that's the way for everybody that's growing up now. I think that's just the way it is. But I feel fortunate that I grew up in an era with the very best music, and in a laid back time when our sensory overload was the county fair, and
Well, you
we
say
got to.
the best music because you've got like 6 decades of music in your back pocket. So give these guys time to hear their best.
Well, yeah, no, I mean it's for what we had, for what we and we had everything WLS, and I mean, that's the thing that you had. It's like t things have all changed. Things have all changed. That's a whole
They
nother
have.
show.
But like yeah, it is. And like I say, it's all balancing out. But again, thanks for taking the time today. I know you're busy, guys, so I'll let you get back to doing what you're doing.
I
So
was like, yeah, God, I got to go to
thank you for
bag
taking the
40
time,
now.
and thank you for representing the merch store today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Go to the merch store and patronize this. What a great cause this is going to. Read the book. I've read it 3 times. I've only cried once,
Yeah, I've got
but
to
I've read
say, I
it.
mean, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I have gotten messages from friends last week and 2 weeks ago, and pretty positive feedback on the book. So if it helps
Well,
you out, guys, take a look at the book. It's cheap. It's only $8
let,
for the hardcover and like $5 for the ebook. So give it a read.
And brother, if you don't toot your own horn, somebody else just uses it for a spittoon.
Hey, you're just trying to tempt me into saying I tooted my horn twice today, but I'm not going to do it. I'll talk to
You
you later,
still
Ollie.
you still got time.